Hello, and welcome to takTalks. My name's Takaya Honda, and here I get to chat to actors about their lives, about what got them into acting, the work they've done. Quite often, we're talking about Neighbours because a lot of them have either been on Neighbours or are on Neighbours. A little bit of Home and Away in there, and I don't know what'll happen in the future, but maybe other people. Who knows? It's been a lot of fun so far, and I hope you are enjoying it. And on today's show, we have an awesome person, Saskia Hampele, who played Georgia Brooks back in the day on Neighbours and has been doing some exciting stuff since, and was doing some exciting stuff before it. She's really just an exciting all-round person. And I actually know her through her husband, Kane Tremills, who I did a show presenting on ABC3 with, who is also an awesome person. That awesome is my new catchphrase after me and Scott Major yesterday were talking about cool. I just made that up then. I hope you appreciate it. Anyway, let's bring on Saskia. Yay!
Hey!
How was that for an intro? It's weird.
Great intro. I loved it. I feel like Kane got a better intro than me. Awesome.
Well, I said awesome for you, and then I was echoing it. So you must have,
It's true.
you both
true.
got so much awesomeness going on. You needed multiple awesome.
Got equal awesomeness.
How have you been in these isolation times?
Surprisingly pretty good. Yeah. I live in a really nice coastal beach town, which is like an hour from Sydney. So it's felt kind of like I've been in a bit of a holiday environment, which I know is not the case for most people. So I just want to acknowledge that I'm very lucky. But also, yeah, it's just been pretty relaxed.
Well, it's good to see how the other side live.
I know. It's not that awesome. I mean,
don't talk it down now. You just talked it up,
like. I know, but we also got a new puppy like 2 weeks or 3 weeks before the ISO started, or before coronavirus was like a big thing, just coincidentally. So that's also made this period really fun because we've had like something to focus on, and unemployment doesn't seem so bad when you have a puppy to hang out
you
with.
definitely have to get Kane to bring over the puppy so we see the puppy, because everyone wants to see the puppy.
Where did she go? She was barking at me to be fed before, but she has had her dinner, so now she's deserted.
As usual, that's what they do. Yeah. Well, so what have you just been taking care of the puppy? Is there other stuff you've been getting up to?
I've been teaching acting online, which has been interesting.
And where can people find you to do that if they want to?
I'm teaching at TAFTA,
Cool.
Which is, I don't even know what it stands
Theatre
for.
and
Something
film.
TV and film.
Television and
Academy
film.
of
Theatre.
Australia.
Wait, I feel like we
should know this.
I should,
given that I teach.
The Australian Film and Television Academy.
Well, there you go.
That makes sense.
So I've been doing some classes for them, which has been really fun, actually. I was a bit nervous doing an online course, thinking that it was going to be really boring, but the students seem to be enjoying it. At least that's what they're telling me.
Is it a group
Maybe
thing,
they're lying.
or is it like one-on-ones?
Yeah. No, it's a group.
Wow. So is that like one person takes a turn and does a thing to camera, and everyone's like watching them through like a Zoom or something?
Yeah, it's on Zoom. So you have all the little heads, and then we're doing scene work at the moment. So people take it in turns to run their scenes, and
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
That's awesome. Have you have you been teaching for a while, or is that like the first jump into it?
Yeah, no, I've been teaching for a while, and there's my puppy.
Oh.
Maybe I should introduce her now. I have been teaching for a while for them, but this is the first time online, which is cool. Chili, come here. So her name's Chili.
Chili.
Come here.
Great name for a puppy.
Big muffin.
Oh my god! Is that like a Saint Bernard? Is that what they call it?
She's a Bernese mountain dog crossed with a poodle.
Oh my god!
Say hi.
Chili, you are super cute.
Yeah.
Oh my god! When all of this is over, I'm definitely coming down or up. I always get confused about that. And just to say hi to Chili.
Bring Mia, the little dog.
Mia doesn't like other dogs, and it's super.
Oh no!
She's
Chili will be a giant by the time. Kane's bringing me a chew toy, so she'll chew my hand. She's gonna get pretty big.
How big are we talking?
Like, quite funny. Like hip height.
Yeah.
Like her body will be hip
Do you know how
height,
much weight?
maybe. Oh,
What
it's
weight?
hard. 40, 50
Yeah.
kilo, I want to say.
She'll be a big
She'll get
girl.
big.
That's oh, what a
Yeah.
cutie.
She's already pretty big. She's not even 4 months
Oh
old.
my god.
And she's
Mia is maybe the size of
big.
her head. Because Mia's 3 kilos and she's like 5.
Oh my God, she's so
She's
tiny.
she's yeah.
All right, I'll let her down because she's going to go rabid. She just wants to run around. She has her witching hour at about this time. So she eats dinner and then she goes like complete witchy and just runs around the house and tries to eat everyone and everything.
Mia's been so weird in isolation because she'll like normally we'll just sit on the couch and whatever, and she's really lapdoggy. She'll cuddle you forever, but she's we'll sit down and eat dinner now, and she's like rubbing herself against us and jumping over us, and like, which is weird because she's got so much of us. I don't know whether she's trying to push us out, and she's like, I want my own time. Like, you've been here all day.
Just like, this is
Get
my
out.
house.
What are you doing here all the time? Or what? But she's lost the plot, especially when we do video chats with friends and stuff. I don't know whether it's because we're talking to someone, she can't see the other person or not, but she just normally is just chill on the couch, quiet, doing nothing. And then, but as soon as we're talking to someone, she loses the plot and can't handle it.
Yeah, it's when you want them to be quiet and just like have a nap, and then they're like, "Oh no, I'm wide awake. I need your attention right now."
Absolutely. Well, that's cool. How's Chili? I love good name too.
Chili is great. She's the best dog.
All right, we'll get on to some of our acting the chat.
Oh yes.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Perth.
Perth, over there.
That little town over the other side.
The one street city.
Yeah.
No, Perth's beautiful. What was that like? Were you a massive beach girl then?
I did really love the beach. When I was probably up until about 10 years old, we lived really close to the beach. So grew up very much on the beach, which is why I love it now. And then we moved up to the hills, and I forced my parents to get me a horse. So then I became like super horse nerd person. And then I became a teenager and just hated everything.
Yeah, as you do, except the horse. I'm sure.
I didn't hate the horse, no, but I became less interested in horse riding.
And when did performance stuff you? Were you one of those kids who performed to their parents and stuff?
Yeah, I was pretty into performing from like a young age. I remember, I'm trying to think when I started. I did like a play when I was pretty young. I did Sound of Music and The King and I at like a local theatre company when I was in primary school. So I must have been, I don't know, 8, 10, around that age. And I loved it. And then I was really musical as well. So I ended up spending a lot of time doing music stuff more so than acting in my teen years. I did a bit of like, there's kids shows that film in Perth. And so I did some like extra work on those, but nothing big.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was quite into acting, but I don't know, growing up in Perth, it's not really a thing that you can do for a job. Or maybe growing up anywhere, it doesn't really feel that we weren't in the industry or anything like that. So it didn't feel like it was something that was achievable. I just loved watching, TV. Like I loved Home and Away and Heartbreak High. And I really, looked up to, like, I was like, oh, what a cool, amazing job. But it just didn't seem achievable. So then I didn't really do anything much with it until I had left school and kind of, it was maybe in my early 20s when I started taking it seriously.
Mm-hmm. And because you did a little thing on TV when you were a kid, weren't you, though?
Yeah, so that was a kids show.
And how did that come about?
I was doing like deportment classes at...
What's a deportment class?
I don't even know if they still exist. It's so wrong now. The feminist in me is like, what are you doing? But basically it's where they teach young girls how to like walk properly and do their makeup. And
very good.
Yeah. Kind of like a modelling school, which a funny story is I was in class with Jessica Gomes, who's now like a big supermodel David Jones ambassador. So when we were like little kids, yeah, we did like deportment modelling classes. But a part of that is they put us up for like, commercials and little TV bits and bobs. And so I think it was through that I got invited to audition for a couple of like kids TV shows because Barron Films, I think it was Barron Films, all of their shows filmed in Perth. So it was like, I can't remember the names of most of them, but The Gift was one that I was a part of. Parallax. There was a few like kids shows. Anyway, so I had a little speaking role in one of those, which was fun.
Yeah, and did that at all? Is that something that in your 20s you went, I really enjoyed that. I wouldn't mind doing that. What was the inspiration when you in your early 20s to come to it?
It wasn't really about what I'd done. It was more that I felt like I was lacking a bit of creativity. So I went to uni and I was studying social work, which I really love and still do a bit of now. But it was very like, psychology and using my brain, and I just felt like I didn't really have a creative outlet at that time. And so I remember thinking that I wanted to get back into kind of music and acting as a bit of a creative outlet, a bit of a hobby. And then reached out to a local agent in Perth, and she started putting me out for kind of, commercials and short films and things like that. And I started booking work, and I was like, oh, this is something that people like pay you to do, and it's actually really fun, and I'm getting jobs. Maybe I should take this a bit more seriously. And that's kind of where that passion sort of took off. And I wanted to do a lot more of it, I guess.
Was there a specific moment for you that like where it went from just a thing to do some creative, and like was there like a moment where you had like a realization or anything, or was it just a general kind of shift?
I don't think it was a moment, but I think that I had this realization that I was okay, because I remember having an acting teacher when I was maybe like 17 or 18, just as I was getting back into it, and she said something really like dismissive, like either you got it or you don't, and then kind of gave me really harsh feedback. And I don't think it was necessarily addressed at me, but I was like, oh, I'm one of the ones that don't got it. And that was just like, I was like, okay, I guess I'm just a bit of I'm not a good actor. Maybe I should do something else. But then I kept getting cast in things, and I was like, surely I'm not that bad if I'm getting work. And I think it was just a slow building block from there where I was like, oh, okay, now that I've got a bit of experience, I'm getting more gigs, and it just felt like opportunities were coming.
Was there a gig that allowed you to dismiss that comment and filled you with confidence, like where you went, no, I do know what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did a short film called Mavita, and I played kind of the lead character in that, and it was quite professionally done, and I think that was probably the moment that I really found myself as an actor. I stopped schmacting and started acting a bit more. Maybe I should look back on it.
When you say schmacting, how do you describe your schmacting?
Oh, like either you're a schmacter and you're like trying to say the words with a lot of intention and it's not very real, versus like trying to be a real person and, embody someone else's life. And I think that was the film where I started to figure out that's what acting is, and that's what's really enjoyable, when you actually get in flow and you feel like you're living out someone else's story and you're in that character, as opposed to trying to be something or do something.
Yeah, which is a hard thing to achieve, and it's hard to know. It's kind of like you need to get to the point where you don't feel like you're schmacting anymore to actually stop schmacting in a way. You know what I mean?
Well, you have to realise what schmacting is as well, because for a long time I thought that I was doing really good acting because I was, trying really hard and doing everything with a lot of passion and saying all the words really clearly and how I'd memorise them. I think it was just that learning process of breaking that habit.
Yeah.
And then I just remember getting some really nice feedback from a casting director, Jenny Cohen, who I don't know if she still does casting in Perth, and actually Annie Murtogh-Monks, who coincidentally cast the show that I'm doing at the moment. She also gave me some lovely feedback, and I think that started to shift my belief in myself, where I was like, oh, these people who like have legitimate jobs in the industry who put you in things that they're doing think that I'm okay. So maybe I'm all right.
And so were you doing social work throughout all of this period as well?
Yeah, so I was at uni studying.
All right, so still at uni going through it. And
Yeah.
and what got you into social work? What was the inspiration for that?
Uh, Randomly, I got into social work. So I dropped out of school when I was in year 11. I was a bit of a rebellious teen. I just wanted to do the opposite of what everyone else was doing. And dropping out of school seemed like a really good idea because I wanted to get a car, and you can only get a car if you have a job. And I needed to, I needed to work full time in order to make enough money to get a job, get a car. Because back then, like I think the job that I got when I dropped out of school paid me $6.10 an hour.
Oof.
So I was working full time and I was making $211 a week. So I saved up for a car, which was probably about $500.
Yeah.
That was like a year of saving.
Yeah.
Dropped out of school and so I worked at a pharmacy for a year, and saved up money and was like, maybe this isn't the life plan that I had in mind. It's not as glamorous as I thought. And I was like, okay, so I need to go back and do some study of something. Yeah. And I was just looking at like what TAFE courses I could get into, having not finished my schooling, and community services was one of them. And I'd always been quite interested in kind of like people and what makes them tick, and psychology and stuff like that. So that seemed like a good option. And when I finished that TAFE course, a part of it was that you could get enough credit to get into social work as a university degree. So I didn't really know what social work was, but I knew that I could get into it without going back and doing year 12. So I did it, and I started really liking it. So I stayed. My plan originally was to do it for a year and then transfer to psychology, because I knew my credits would get me into psychology, and then I never changed.
And that's a good example of, because there's a lot of pressure put in those, in Australia, year 12 exams, or final year of high school exams, to get the score, and whatever the score is in each country and whatever, to get the uni thing, because that is sort of explained as the only way you can do it and the best way to get a good job or whatever it is, when in reality there's multiple paths, and there's many ways. Many
Just drop out, kids.
Drop out of school. You'll be fine.
Nobody needs school.
What made you dislike school so much?
I don't know. I was doing really well. I was like top of my maths class. I was on a music scholarship. I don't know.
You wanted a car. It's literally, I want a car.
I think I was just really a bit self-destructive maybe at the time.
Had you heard of part-time work, like working on the weekends?
I had a job at my mum owned a cafe, so I was working there part-time, earning better money than all of my friends. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I just really liked the idea of not being at school anymore. I think the other part of it as well was that it was at the point where you have to choose your subjects for your whatever it's called, HSCTE. I can't remember what it was in Perth. And I'd chosen a bunch of subjects, but I didn't actually know what I wanted to do after school. And I don't think anyone sat down with me and said, this is some career options. So I had no idea what I wanted to do. I'd chosen these subjects based off of who knows. And in my head, I was like, well, what if I want to be a doctor? I'm not doing any science subjects, so I'm not going to be able to get into medicine anyway with this. And didn't make sense to me to spend 2 years studying for something that maybe wasn't what I actually wanted to do. Yeah. So
that is also a weird thing about that school time as well, because it's like, well, in your last couple of years, you kind of have to know what you're going to want to do for the rest of your life. And I remember going to uni or getting the booklet for all the uni courses, and this was like halfway through year 12 or whatever, and going, what are all these other things? I've never heard of these things. You could do that? Yeah. And then
nobody told me that you could do acting at university. Like, I did not know. Whopper was down the road from where I was living. Wow. And I had no idea that you could study acting.
People, how do you study that?
For a full university degree. Like NIDA, Whopper, all those courses, I just had no idea that existed. Because I probably maybe would have gone down that path if I knew that was a legitimate option.
Yeah.
But I didn't, until it was too late. well, I thought it was too late. I was probably like 21 and I was like, oh, I'm too old for that.
I've got life experience now. I don't need to do that.
That's exactly what I was like. I've worked. I've done short films. I've done commercials. I'm getting work, so why would I do Whopper?
Yeah. Well, to a degree, though, if you are getting work, I mean, that's sort of what happened with me. It was the people I was working with who were Whopper or NIDA grads said, well, yeah, you could go away for 3 years and you're kind of here and everybody else will come in here and you'll go up to here and then they'll come up to you. So, and if you're already getting work, it's kind of like there's heaps of grads who are coming out and they're not getting any work. So ride that wave and see where that takes you. Now that wave has led to me being here, which is pretty good so far, I feel.
Yeah, I had the same kind of mentality in a way where I was like, well, I may as well I'm learning a lot on set that people who, like I did a film, a kind of short feature in Perth called Hollywood Sign Girls, and two of the actresses that I worked with were in their final year of Whopper, and everyone was like, well, you've got way more kind of experience and you're more comfortable in front of a camera than these guys who have been studying for 3 years, so why would you go and then go back to school when you've kind of got that experience, because you learn so much being on set.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and especially in those schools, like it's getting better, but it's mostly theatre-based performance. It's not, there's so little screen taught. So a lot of them come out and then they go straight into trying to get some screen acting, if not lessons, if not work, to try and build that muscle up, which should happen faster than if you haven't done any performance work.
You'd hope so. But sometimes I feel like it's harder for people to adjust once you've studied theatre and you really got that ingrained. Being able to pare everything back and adjust to screen can be tricky. So who knows?
What was your the first job that you felt you broke out through, where it really started to become a profession, a career? You started earning money that actually you could live with, as opposed to the odd jobs that you might get as an actor.
Yeah. Well, I moved to Melbourne when I was 21. So kind of felt like I'd reached a bit of a ceiling in Perth of what I could achieve. Packed up my car, put my keyboard and my guitar in the boot and decided to drive the Nullarbor. Picked up a hitchhiker to share the driving.
So a chauffeur, you picked up a chauffeur on the way?
We drove half. All these things in hindsight where I'm like, what was I thinking?
Who were they?
What was his name? I think his name was like Kingston or something.
Was he
Maybe.
an Australian? Was he an English backpacker? What was the go?
He was an Australian. He was from Adelaide, and I put an ad on Gumtree saying, I'm leaving tomorrow to drive to Melbourne. Does anyone want to share the drive? And I met this guy at a pub in Northbridge, which is like the nightlife area in Perth, and he seemed normalish, and he wanted to go to Adelaide. So I was like, great, I'll take you to Adelaide if you share the fuel costs and the driving. And so that's what we did.
Did you do that? Because I've driven across the Nullarbor, because I drove my brother from Canberra to Perth. Did you do the Nullarbor in one hit, or did you break it up?
Yeah, I think we did the whole thing in 4 days, so it was 10-hour days driving. So I think that Nullarbor stretch would have been in one hit. Yeah. We've probably stayed at the same roadhouses along the way. There's not much there.
No, we did. We went from Canberra to Sydney, Canberra. That was like one day. And then we drove from there to Melbourne, Ceduna to Adelaide to Kalgoorlie to Perth. And so it was 5 days with one full day in Melbourne. So it was actually 4 days of driving from Canberra to...
Right. Okay, you did a big stretch then. Adelaide to Kalgoorlie is huge.
Yeah, we did one day was 15 and a half hours of just
I was going to
basically
say that
non-stop.
was big.
And we were in like a little Honda Jazz too, and we had heaps of his gear in the back, so we couldn't even sit in the driver's seat or the passenger seat properly because we were like crammed up in this tiny car. It was mayhem.
Yeah, I was driving my old 1987 Mazda 323.
Nice.
And I packed the car so much that when I went to pick this guy up the next day, there was like no room for his stuff. I hadn't factored in the fact that he might have some, like a bag. So he had to like shove his stuff, like jam it in the boot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So two blown tires along the way.
What, we didn't blow any
Apart from
tires.
that,
That's good. That's hard for
yeah,
you though.
it was a 40-degree day the day I left. So it was hot.
Wait, so you usually have one spare. What did you? Are there like
I
tire
had a
places?
spare. Yeah, I had a spare that I put on, and then that was in the first day on the way to Kalgoorlie. The first tire blew. Luckily, he knew how to change a tire. And then as I was driving into Adelaide, my car felt a bit bumpy, and I was leaving really early the next day, and nothing was open when I wanted to leave because I wanted to make it to Melbourne before sundown. So I decided to just drive. And then after about an hour, it was getting like super bumpy. So I was like, okay, I probably need to pull over. So I pulled over in like a little town. And luckily they had a tyre shop and some guys changed my tyre.
That's amazing.
Gave me a new tyre.
So you're driving basically on a rim for an hour. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, so you moved to Melbourne to start your acting.
Melbourne, sorry, yes, acting jobs. My first proper, well, I got an agent. That was probably the first big hurdle. And then from there, I started getting work fairly regularly. So I got a job. My first job was on a Channel 10 series called Mark Loves Sharon. And it was a comedy parody about AFL sporting stars. Jason Gann created it. He's the guy who did Wilfred.
Yeah.
And he played this like obnoxious footy player with a hot wife, and it was as if it was like a reality show shot like that.
Yeah.
So I played one of the wags on that show, which was really fun. It was like a limited series. I think we did like half a dozen episodes or so.
Yeah.
And then I got a few feature films, and I was like, yes, this is it. My career's taking off. And then I had about a year or so of just like crickets. And I went to the States in that time, and I had I got a manager and a agent and everything like that, and did a pilot season, and thought that, didn't book any jobs. I thought like, okay, the dream is not how I pictured it.
The snowball is starting to melt.
Yeah. So then I came home from LA. I had no money left. I was really deflated. I'd quit my job as a social worker. I was like, what am I going to do with my life? Kane at the time was shooting Bushwhacked.
When did you met Kane?
Oh, I met Kane in Melbourne in '08. So we actually worked at a youth organisation together. So while I was doing the acting jobs, I was also doing social work. So we started working at the Reach Foundation, and Kane had been there for a few years as a facilitator. And
was he on ABC3 when you guys met?
No.
So I was proud of
he
it.
was he was running groups for Reach, and we were like the forbidden office romance, but we really liked each other, so we ended up secretly kind of getting together, and then had to fess up to Jim Steins, who's the footballer, AFL footy player that created the Reach Foundation. He was like the big boss. So,
and was he okay with it?
Yeah, he was pretty good. In the end. He gave us a stern talking to, and then it was all good. So we met there before either of us had really solid careers. We'd both done a little bit.
Who was chasing who?
Oh, I think Kane was probably chasing me. I don't know. He said to one of our mates the first day that I started working there, he's looking at me like, what are you talking about? He said to one of his mates, I'm going to marry that girl, before we'd even spoken.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And look at you now.
Mazzed up.
Yeah. Anyway, back to Mark Loves Sharon.
Yeah.
What was that experience like for you then?
It was awesome. I loved it. I got to work with some really funny people because it was comedy. It was my first job doing anything for like a network television. Chilly. So that was very exciting. Like just being on Channel 10 was like, oh my God, I've made it.
What was it like the first time you watched yourself on screen?
I can't even remember. I can't remember where I was. yeah, I don't know. And it was weird because I still had like my day job. So I was going in, I didn't really tell anyone at my day job. But then like at night I was like watching my episodes. And I remember one of the girls that I worked with coming in one day being like, I was watching the telly last night and you were on it. And she was really confused. So I was like, oh yeah, I do acting. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was nice. It was a pretty fun project to be a part of, and I'm still mates with like some of the people that I worked with. So, and that was over 10 years ago. So it obviously stuck.
Yeah, that's one of the nice things about acting, because you have to be so intimate with each other, not necessarily in that when you're in a relationship with someone on screen, but just in general, like an acting group, you form such strong intimate relationships, so you can really create.
Just hanging around waiting all the time.
You're forced into it through. It's the anti-social distancing that forces you into being friends with each other.
Yeah.
So were you doing musical through this as well?
Yeah, that's probably at the point that I stopped doing music as much. So when I was in Perth, I started kind of gigging. I was writing my own songs and playing sort of solo shows around Perth, doing the pub circuit. And then when I came to Melbourne, I did a couple of gigs and was kind of trying to do both, but sort of realised that acting took up a lot of my energy, and I ended up having to, I guess, decide whether I wanted to really pursue music or really pursue acting, because I felt a bit stretched doing both. So, I sort of did a little bit of music, and it's ended up colliding a lot with my acting life as well. But yeah, kind of stopped pursuing that as much at that point.
Were you doing music all through when you were younger as well?
Yeah, my mum's a musician, so I started playing piano when I was probably like 2 or 3. Started playing violin when I was 5, I think. And then, was on a music scholarship for percussion randomly. Played saxophone at one point. Yeah, it was
a bit of
very
everything.
Musical household, a bit of everything. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And then in my kind of early 20s or late teens, picked up guitar and kind of taught myself a bit of guitar.
Do you have siblings?
Yeah, I've got an older brother who's the complete opposite to me.
What does he do?
He's a computer nerd, professionally.
Professional computer nerd.
Yeah.
Did he play music as well? Did you have a little family band?
We didn't have a family band. He did play music. He played the clarinet and a bit of piano.
Such a nerd.
It was a very kind of music-based household, but I don't think he does any music anymore. We never really played together as a family, which is interesting.
What about Dad?
Dad's a science teacher.
All right. So
not musical at all.
Computer nerd and scientist, and then musician, active musician.
That's true.
Yeah. So it's an even split down the middle.
So
what happened after Mark Loves Sharon?
So after Mark Loves Sharon, I did some feature films. So I did a film called Blame, which shot in WA, which was really cool because I got to go home. And I did a film called Arctic Blast, which I hope no one looks up after this and watches because it's pretty bad.
What was Blame like then? You didn't talk down Blame. It must have been good.
But I had quite a small part in Blame. I died.
In like the first 30 seconds or something?
Well, the whole film was about my death, but I was only in it for a very short amount of time. It was funny. I went through this phase where I kept getting cast as like dead people or dying people.
It's like is it Sean Bean who dies in like every role he does? Is it Sean Bean? I think. He's from Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings, and like his character always dies. Like there's like you can look up on YouTube. There's like just his death scenes back to back to back. Every single thing he does, he dies in for some reason.
Yeah. I figured maybe it was because I had like a really sweet, innocent face, and like people felt sorry for me being dead. That was how I justified it. I made a good victim.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at that. Rather than people wanted to kill you, it was the innocence that they were.
No.
Just so a few feature. What were the next feature films after that? You said there's
Arctic Blast, which was about the world coming to an end because an Arctic frost has taken over.
And what was your role in that?
I was playing it's a funny big word, a long word for scientist, basically. Um,
Yep.
I knew it at the time. So Michael Shanks, who was in Star Trek, Stargate, correction. He was the lead, and so I was kind of his right-hand woman in saving the world.
And did you die?
Didn't die.
You didn't die. Excellent. Did
My
you save
first
the
thing
world?
Yes.
Spoiler
We
alert,
did.
but
Spoiler alert.
but nobody's going to
Please
go
no
watch
one-
it now. So.
Please don't watch it.
Although when you say don't watch it, everyone then wants to try to find it to watch it. So, which is definitely what I'm going to go hunt on all the streaming services to see if it's somewhere.
I mean, everyone's got time now to watch a terrible disaster film. So
Yeah.
It's, shouldn't say this. There's probably like a lot of people put hard work into that film. I'm sure that it's not that bad.
Yeah, no, that wasn't backtracking. That was a genuine.
It was one of those funny things because I hadn't really worked before on anything. Because you realise after you've been in the industry a while, you realise that this is probably very disheartening to any kind of TV fans that are out there, but you realise that everyone's a little bit disappointed in what they're doing generally. Like it's just a general overtone of like, oh, this isn't going to turn out very well. For a lot of the stuff you do. Every now and then you hit a winner where it's like, this is going to be amazing. But a lot of the time everyone's sitting around being like, wish we had a bigger budget.
Yeah, which is surely all a result of just to be in this industry, you have to have a lot of ambition because it's a high risk industry. It's a gamble to try to become successful in any of the fields really. So I think that creates a mood of I want it to be better, and at the moment I can't afford or I don't have the funds to do the thing that is in my head. So then it's always a constant step up. So, yeah.
100%. And I think in Australia especially, we work on very low budgets compared to the States. So we kind of have to be ambitious because that's the parameters of what we're working with. But yeah, so halfway through this film, I remember Michael Shanks sort of being like, this is going to be a bomb. And I was like, what? I was so confused because I was like, but you flew all the way from America to do this. Like, this is going to be a really good film. And he was so realistic. He was just like, oh, mate, this is a shit show. we were filming an Arctic, like the world freezes over and we were in Tasmania. Like there's no snow. Yeah. So we were, it was very ambitious. Anyway, so I think that was a bit of a weird realization of being like, oh, sometimes you do things and you realize that they're not going to be what you wanted them to be. Like I realized in that moment, I was like, oh, this is probably not going to necessarily change my career, or like, I'm not going to be suddenly working with Scorsese after this film. But it was a really awesome experience of just like being able to be on set. I was down in Tasmania for about 3 months shooting, which was really exciting, and worked with some great people. And yeah, my first kind of real taste of a longer term professional gig, which was awesome.
Yeah. Well, and it's also the thing, you got cast in something too. So like that in itself is a huge achievement. And that's why they always say, get your next gig before your previous gig comes out. So then you're riding on the heat of just being in it. So what was next?
After that, I did a film called Six Plots, which, also very ambitious film. But also like worked with some really great people on that. And I don't know if that's still around the traps, but it was about a bunch of teenagers who get trapped in coffins underground. So it was kind of a horror thriller sort of film.
Were you one of the ones underground?
So the funny story is I auditioned to be one of the teenagers underground. And I think at the time I was 24 or 25 and these guys were like 17, 18. But I've always played a lot younger. So I auditioned for that, and then they ended up casting a lot of quite young actors to play the other teams. So next to them, I looked a bit older, but they really liked me. So they cast me as their teacher. Oh. So then they were like, okay, now we have to make you look really old as opposed to really young. So, yeah, I play the teacher who, again, is kind of saving the day a little bit. So got typecast in those sort of roles.
You're either dying or saving the world. I mean, as far as like a dichotomy goes, it's not a bad one to be as an actor, you know.
Yeah.
So were you through this period? Were you were then essentially learning your craft? Were there?
Yeah, and I was acting consistently, which was really nice. Like I think those 3 films happened in the space of 6 months
wow.
or so. So yeah, I was, really excited and really grateful and learning a lot and taking it all in.
Did you get any mentors or people guiding you through it from these gigs?
Not necessarily from the gigs. I worked with, so Arctic Blast was directed by Brian Trenchard-Smith, who directed Nicole Kidman in BMX Bandits.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, which was a really cool kind of connection to make, and he was really lovely and generous throughout the filming of that. And also one of the producers, Tony Ganane, who's done a lot of big films, was on it as well. So there was some really kind of good industry people that I was able to connect with along the way. And then kind of I connected with John Orchik, who started Chapter, which is where I'm working now, very early on. He actually helped me get my agent when I first moved to Melbourne. So he's also been a really great mentor, from an acting perspective along the way.
And so the next thing was really Neighbours from there? Was that the...
Yeah, so fast forward. So I after the films, I was like, this is amazing. I'm going to go to LA and this is the career trajectory. Went to LA, got a big manager and went for some really big auditions. It was very exciting, but didn't book anything after a couple of months there. So came back to Australia, broke, like feeling helpless, and flew to the Northern Territory where Kane was shooting Bushwhacked. Yes, we're back here. Literally landed in from LA to Papunya, which is a remote town 3 hours out of Alice Springs. So very, very remote, and spent the next month on the road with Bushwhacked doing the Northern Territory, which was amazing. And the reason why I bring that up is because while I was in Kakadu National Park filming an episode, I get an audition through for a character on Neighbours, who was originally called Daisy, funnily enough, which is a nickname that I have.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, okay, I've got to film this audition. And so I got the film crew from Bushwhacked to put up their cameras one morning in the national park and filmed a self-tape for this role in Neighbours. And then a few weeks later, I was back in Melbourne. The shoot was over and we went back. I got a job as a nanny because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And then Thea McLeod called me back to read for the role, which the name had been changed to Georgia.
Thea McLeod being the casting director for everyone who doesn't know.
Yes. And so I auditioned with her and Alan Hardy, who was the producer at the time. And I was really, really sick. I had an awful flu. I'd been in bed for like 4 days, and it landed on my callback day. And I was like, here we go again. I've blown another one. Went in. I was so sick. And actually Ash Brewer was reading with me. And
were you owning the fact that you were sick in that audition, or were you pretending like everything was fine?
Yeah. But I had no energy. I was so sick.
That's what they probably saw. She's willing to work through sickness. We should get this one.
Or they were like, gee, she's really grounded and natural. Because I was just, usually at a callback especially, you've got so much nervous energy. I just had no time for that. I was so sick. I was like, I just need to read these lines and get out of here.
That definitely would have helped. Like, if you're cancelling out those nervous energy, I think, especially as a comparison to other people that come in who have all this nervous energy, you have someone who is sick but seems completely unnervous and at ease. That's going to make you stand out without you even knowing it.
That's true. It was only me and one other girl though. So, and the other girl was good mates with one of the other actors on the show. So apparently everyone was rooting for this other girl to get the part. And then I walked into the green room a couple of weeks later and everyone was like, hi.
That's a helpful way to start.
No, they were absolutely lovely. But they did tell me that later on. They were like, "Ooh, we kind of all wanted this other person to get the role."
Well, good. What was your first day on set like on the Neighbours set?
Oh, so fun. I worked with Eve Morey and with Scott Major and did the first scene that Georgia is in. Actually, was my first scene.
That's lucky.
Yeah, really lucky. And Jo Vita was directing me. Jo Vita O'Shaughnessy. Oh,
Yep.
she'll kill me for using her full name, Jo.
Joe.
Yeah, so I was in Sonia's nursery filming my kind of arrival on the street, and it was so much fun. And I met like Fletch and Ryan. Ryan was playing my cousin. Ryan Maloney plays Toadie. So that was really nice, just kind of connecting with the people that were in my immediate family world. Or that were going to be in my immediate family world. And it was just super welcoming. Like I felt really welcomed into the family straight away.
How did you find the speed? Did you fit into that reasonably well, or were you shocked by it?
No, I wasn't shocked by it. I think didn't really know what I was expecting. I haven't really worked on a lot of slow shooting stuff, to be fair. Yes, Neighbours is faster than the stuff I was doing on films, but it didn't feel out of the ordinary to be shooting fairly quickly and to be only getting a couple of takes at things.
Coming from a low budget film, you're probably getting that anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were there any lessons that you had learnt whilst on Neighbours that you didn't expect?
Oh, like how to find my light. What else? What else did I learn? Oh, just all the tricks that they use, like all the behind the scenes camera stuff. I wish I'd spent more time learning that stuff as well when I was on there. I think up until that point, all I'd focused on was what I was doing in the acting part. But Neighbours is great because after 6 months, you're so in the flow of it that you then start paying attention to what everyone else is doing. So you learn the craft of making a TV show as well as the craft of acting. Yeah.
And who are you working with? Who are you working with most then? I know you would have been with Milligan quite a bit.
Yeah, Chris Milligan, Ash Brewer, Ryan and Eve, and Fletch. They were probably and Colette as well because she ended up being the mother-in-law.
Yeah.
I think they were the most people that I was working with.
Because you're a nurse too.
Yeah. So I was in the hospital. You probably took all my took over that storyline arc of being Dr. Carl's
doing everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything that Carl doesn't do.
I remember one scene. I think Fletch was in the UK or something, so he wasn't around, and one of the characters died, and I was the one who delivered the news to the family, to the Turners, to tell them that who died. Oh, I can't even remember. That's how bad my memory is. Anyway, one of their family members died, and the nurse in the hospital delivers the news to the family.
yeah, which is a classic thing
Sounds
in
about right.
Neighbours. It's always the doctors are a doctor of everything and do all the jobs that the nurses do when the nurses don't have a speaking role. So that's so great. Just so you know, there is a chat feature. There's a live chat feature going on, which is what I'm looking at over here. Right. I like someone asked, "What is your husband doing there?"
I want to say with some kind of vegetable. Giving it a side eye. Steamed vegetables and sausages, I think, is for dinner.
You sang a song on Neighbours, right? You released a song.
Yeah.
Was it one?
Did.
Was it more? Was it
just one?
Just one.
I sang many songs. There was one released song. I think it's still on iTunes.
Everyone go watch it listen to it on iTunes.
Yeah.
Did you grow up with animals?
I had cats and a horse and a goat and rabbits.
A goat?
And chickens. It's a funny story about the goat. Do you want to hear it?
Yes, please.
So I used to walk home from primary school when I was in my late primary school years, and one day I started walking past this property and they had a goat in their yard that used to kind of just be standing there, and so I'd go over and say hello every day, and one day the owners were there and I was saying how much I love their goat and they were like, "Great, do you want it?" And I was like, yes, duh. So I went home and I was like, Mum, I found us a goat. And she was like,
Were you
we
with
don't
the
need a
goat,
goat.
or
And I was like,
were you literally coming in with the goat?
no, I think I asked for permission. I can't quite remember. But anyway, this goat, his name was Billy.
Classic. Billy goat.
Yeah. He liked to be walked on a lead. So he came home with me on a lead. I walked him home and he like would just go for walks with you like a dog.
That's awesome. Were there any cases of eating all the clothes on the line and that kind of stuff?
No, he did have a bit of a urine problem though. He used to just like pee all over himself frequently. So yeah, I don't know what that
Was it
was. I think he'd get excited and then just lose it.
was Billy an inside goat, or was Billy kept in the backyard?
No, outside. He was a hornless goat. So he was kept in the yard with the horse.
Oh yeah. Were they good friends?
Oh no, Billy thought they were. My horse did not.
Oh, poor Billy. That's a bit sad.
Poor horse. Billy used to harass my poor horse, Cass. Would be like, leave me alone.
Trying to jump on me.
Yeah, pretty much.
Do you have any advice for any budding actors out there? Can be about anything. Can be about the acting. Can be about the business.
Advice. I don't know. What's your advice, Takaya?
My advice is generally do as much acting as possible in whatever form you can get. So go out and audition for everything. Do short films. Do community plays. Do whatever. Because even if they're not good, or that the people you're working with aren't great, or whatever, you'll learn stuff and you'll pick up things and you'll figure things out about yourself, and you'll try things, and especially in those cases you can get put in roles that you wouldn't play because they probably don't suit you, but you were there, so they used you. And that actually later on you can look back on and think, actually I'm so grateful I got to do that thing, because professionally I probably won't ever get to play that kind of role. Like a lot of people look at not that I went to an acting school, but look at their acting school roles because they need an older person in the shows that they do. They end up playing the old person, which you wouldn't do until you're an old person in the real world.
Yeah, in TV world, yeah.
Yeah, so that's my advice, is just go and do as much of it as you can, because it's the best way to learn. Because even if you do heaps of classes, there's a difference once you step on set. There's a difference once you step out on a stage and have people looking at you. You have the lights in your eyes and that kind of stuff. And the faster you can get comfortable at that, the easier it becomes, the better acting you can do. Because confidence is like half of the battle in my mind. As simple as, especially when you'll see seasoned actors come onto Neighbours, and the speed throws them a little bit, and suddenly lines start to disappear, and they lose that tiny bit of confidence that they have in their brain, that they know what they're doing starts to deteriorate, and suddenly things just start falling away. And I find it's a constant management of confidence. Of like, after you've had a little holiday or whatever, and you go back that first day, you're like, do I remember how to do this? Do I remember my lines? And if you start thinking, what's my line? You've forgotten your line, because you're thinking about your line, not about what you're doing, and it all goes out the window.
100%. 100%. It's funny, those production breaks, we're usually only like 2 weeks long, but I had exactly the same thing where I'd come back and I'm like, I don't know how to do this anymore. It's all gone. Or
if you go and step on another set as well, it's like, you're like, I've literally going from the Neighbours set to like the Family Law set or whatever. I was like, why? I'm saying less than I normally do, but I feel like it's so much harder to do it. Like, why? What's going on? Like, the self-doubt thing is like, for me especially, I think that like half the battle is really just the trust and the confidence that just to do your thing and trying to relax, because it's such a weird environment, and especially in auditions. Auditions are crazy. Like the worst. Like, how do you test whether someone can be this person? By putting them in a completely void environment with just a camera and maybe a casting director who sometimes isn't reading the script all that well, because they're trying to do multiple things at once, when you're playing a person who lives in a real life. And on set, at least you have props, you have a costume, you have stuff around you. So you got to really, I think, try to get as much confidence that you can do what you need to, so that all of those other things, all of those distractions and stuff don't become... they don't ruin it for you. That's my
100%.
That's tax tips on getting
Love
into
it.
acting.
Everything that you said. You know, it's funny. I had this because I knew I was doing this last night. I was thinking about Neighbours a bit, and I was like, I wonder if I would even know how to play Georgia anymore. Like, who is she? I was like, I've been playing such a different character on The Heights that I was like, I don't even know if I would be able to find her again if I went back.
But that was Scott Major was talking about that yesterday, because obviously Lucas has sort of existed in the world for a while, but has been off for a bit, and he found it really funny that like as soon as he saw that had the script and then just started saying the words, I can't remember who he was playing a scene with, and he just like, oh, it's just there, like it's just that other personality that suddenly appears in your mind, and it just all comes flooding back, which I'm sure it would for you too. But tell me about The Heights. How's that been going?
Oh yeah, yeah, it's great. I'm due for a little watching party in about an hour and a half when it goes to air. It's pretty cute because of the isolation. All of the cast and some of the directors, we're having little Zoom dates on a Thursday when the episodes go to air. So we have like a little half-hour catch-up where we eat our dinner and then we all mute ourselves and watch it on the screen. We're not even looking at each other, but we're just like screen full of the other actors watching each other, watching the show.
That's awesome. I love that. And it shows that there's like a good community around that. I watched a few episodes today because I think you appear like in episode 3 or something.
Are you watching season 1?
Yeah, season 1.
2.
I think it's season 1. It's a good show. And you're playing like quite a... How would you sum her up?
Well, she has evolved a lot. She's a great character. I love Renee. I started off hating her, and I had to really get over that because I judged her a lot. But she's had a ginormous character arc. So what you probably saw was a very kind of self-absorbed middle-class mother, not a worry in the world, a bit stuck up, a bit judgmental. Flash forward to where we're at now, season 2, where she's a spoiler alert for anyone that's watching, but she's a hardworking single mother with a lot on her plate and a lot of like just hard stuff to deal with. So
was that like an on-purpose thing of going from the character who kind of looked down on the people in the tower and then sort of becoming part of that community in that way?
Yeah, well, her character story of season 1 is that her husband is a gambling addict. And so she starts in this very picture-perfect family where everything is as it should be and they look really great from the outside. And then she finds out that he's gambled $70,000 of their money and they go into a big world of debt and marital disrepair and everything. And so even from like the makeup department, we talked about how do we like make her look evolve from being this put together, very self what's the word, like conscious of how she looks, person who's always got, full face of makeup, hair done, everything like that. How do we evolve her to be someone who actually just doesn't have time or energy to do anything for herself? So it's this beautiful
and be willing to put
journey.
that out there, I guess, as well as another level to that,
Yeah, I don't know if she ever gets willing to put it out there in that sense, but she definitely has to evolve and let people in and seek support and go and get a job and things like that.
That's an awesome arc.
I'm so lucky. Warren and Q, who wrote the show, like this character was such a blessing. And I, after Neighbours, really wanted to play someone who was very different from Georgia because Georgia was so optimistic and bright and likable and lovely and all these great things. But after playing that role for 3 years, I kind of decided that, I wanted to do something different. So when Renee came along, this character who is just the complete opposite. She's really unlikable at times and she's, really brutally honest and says things that you kind of like, ooh, at. And,
which is such a fun thing as an actor to approach, like trying to make someone who's unlikable likable.
Well, that was the trap that I feel like I fell into at the start because I was like, I want her to be likable because I want to be liked. And the second that I let go of that and just let her be this was when it all fell into place for me, where I was like, she doesn't have to be the most likable person. I think that's the biggest shift from coming from like a Neighbours sort of show where all of the characters are heroes and likable. Even Paul Robinson is likable in his own special way, to trying to create characters that were really flawed. And I was like, I need to just like lean into the fact that I don't agree with her, and I judge her and be okay with that. And she's so different from me that it's actually been the most enjoyable acting experience, because I have just been able to completely let go of my own desires for what I want and just trust the writers and lean into this character.
To me, that's what makes a character likable, is when you know exactly who they are, they know who they are, and that's what they're giving you, because then you know what you're getting with them, you know, as opposed to trying to make what the unlikable things about them likable. It's more about making the unlikable things about them justified in their mind, because then the audience can respect that in a weird way, you know, which is
100%. There's a character on the show called Iris Tran as well, who is a Vietnamese shop owner, who is also like very similar in a lot of ways, where she says really like things that you're like, oh, who's like, she shouldn't be saying that. She's really judgmental. She's really blunt, but also is just one of the most enjoyable characters to watch, because she is so blunt and hilarious. And I think you're right in that the characters that are unlikable in a way, they're so real and people relate to them. They know that person. It's in their life. You know, everyone knows a Renee. And so I think there's something really nice about that.
What brings you the most joy as an actor? Is it something about being on set, something about you can do in a performance? Is it something to do with the outcome? Is it the work you do at home, which I doubt, because most actors don't like doing the work at home. What is it for you? What do you enjoy?
It's definitely not the outcome, because I'm so detached from that now. Like, I don't enjoy watching myself back necessarily. Like, when I watch The Heights, I watch it because I really want to see my friends do amazing work. I want to see the show do well because I was a part of it. So I think for me, there's two parts. The one is when you're on flow on set, which I'm sure you get this. There's just moments, you might get them like once a year, where there's just something that happens and you lose track. You just in the scene and it's happening and it's real. And I call it flow. I don't know, people probably have different ways to describe it, but it's something that happens very rarely, but those moments to me are really magic. And I think that's what I'm always chasing. That's what's enjoyable to me, is chasing that feeling of flow. And then the other thing that I love the most about being on set is the community that you foster with the people you work with. Like The Heights to me is a family that I will have forever, in these people that I've spent such quality time with, that, you know, we all have a similar kind of sense of humour and understanding, and that community that's created is pretty magic. And I still have that with, you know, the people in Neighbours. If I walked into Neighbours today, I'm sure there is a lot of crew that is still there, and it would be like no time has passed, and you're just, you know, your family.
Yeah, absolutely. Like all of the people you think would still be there are still there, you know. I was going to mention some people. I was like, no one else will know what they are, but I can just say that they're all there. They're all there.
They're all there. Well, not right now.
Well, they were to. Oh, no, I probably shouldn't talk about that.
Oh, they've gone back. Oh, spoiler.
No, it's public that we're going back to shooting. So,
yeah, it's been awesome watching Neighbours tackle this virus. I think that you guys have been like the poster child for how to get the wheels on and get back
that's
on the road.
How people sort of describing it. And all I will say is that they've put a lot of effort into making sure that we're all safe, and I feel very safe going back, and I feel safer there than I do going and getting groceries. At the end of the day, for all of the things that they've put in place.
No smoochy.
No smoochy. No. As much as Maddie Wilson, I got to say Matty. I say Maddie, and everyone thinks I'm talking about someone named Maddie, but I don't know if it's an Australian thing or it's just a me thing. But being incapable of pronouncing T's when I say Maddie. I don't know.
Sounds quite funny.
Matty. See that? I don't know. It feels so foreign to me. I'm just speaking my truth, man. Maddie. As much as he will be, really wanting to mac on with me, as he always is. So I'll just have to say no. I have to get out the 1.5 meter stick and push him away.
Yeah, they're gonna have to pry you guys away from each other.
All right, what I do now is I do a little quick fire round because this chat's been going and people ask questions, and there's been a lot of conversation.
Oh yeah, the people.
There's been a lot of chat going on, and I'm not.
Let me guess. There's been more than one person that has asked me if I'm ever going to return to Neighbours.
Well, I'm trying to, because I've been so engaged with you. I've usually tried to keep a little bit of track of what's going on, but there's like big paragraphs of text of people talking about shows and stuff. If someone wants to put in some dot points,
can I read
you can.
them?
I can.
Oh, I'm sorry I missed it, everyone. I feel bad.
I usually send the guest the link, and I just forgot today, just to the chat bit. So you don't have to have the video running as well. But you will be able to see it on the video after we're live, if that makes sense. I won't try and send you it now.
Okay. If anyone wanted to ask me questions that we don't get to, just DM me on Insta, and I'll try to get back to all of you. Or I'll do one of those things where you answer questions.
I'm hoping everyone remembered that yesterday I said to put a question mark at the end of your question, so it's easy for me to spot the question.
And they didn't.
Well, I may just miss it if it's not there. And while I look for this, what do you got? What are you planning to do over the next weeks? Do you have any things to fix up around the house?
I'm going to make cheese. So it was my birthday on Monday. And Kane, thanks. Kane got me a cheese making kit.
Very good.
So I'm going to make cheese. I've just started making my own yogurt. Highly recommend it. It's very easy to make.
How do you make the yogurt?
Stuff. Oh my God. So you know how you buy yogurt from the store?
Yes.
Just save like a few tablespoons of that. Put a litre of milk in a pot and bring it to 160 degrees or just before it boils. And then let it cool, so 110.
Fahrenheit. Yeah, I was like,
yeah,
you can't
translate it.
go above 100, then it's a gas.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Fahrenheit. For our American listeners, because I'm sure there's lots of them.
I know, I do get like one or two. All right, so they're out there.
Okay, there you go. And then you just like put the old yogurt in and let it sit for 5 hours, and then you have more yogurt.
Really? That's all you have to do?
Like magic. Yeah, it's so easy.
That's amazing.
You should do it. And it tastes so much better than store-bought yogurt.
Yeah, well, Amy's dairy-free, and I'm sort of dairy-free because of that, so...
You can make goat's yogurt.
We can do goats. We're not vegan, she's just intolerant, so we can do goats. That's a good idea. I might give that a go. We've got a classic, what was your favourite scene to act on Neighbours?
My favourite scene? Oh, that's hard.
You can answer that in multiple ways. You can say it's what type of scene you like to do, or a storyline is probably easier than a scene, because a scene is very specific.
Yeah. There was a cool scene. There was a really fun scene where I got to throw trash on Ash Brewer's head. That was quite hilarious. There was also a really great storyline where my evil cousin came to Erinsborough and tried to sabotage my relationship. And when all of that came out, that storyline was probably the most fun that I had, because Kat Beck, who played my cousin, was amazing, really talented actress. And it was just a juicy kind of storyline. It was so Neighbours. Like, she was like hitting on the school child because she was a teacher, and then she was like telling me lies about Kyle and trying to get me to turn away from Kyle. And then she took me to this deserted cabin and she tried to kill me. That whole storyline was very fun.
As opposed to Will You Return, do you miss working on Neighbours?
Oh, so much. I love Neighbours. Yeah, I miss it a lot. I miss the people the most.
What else we got here? On your last stint on it, how did Georgia get out of Lassiter's alive? The stairs were on fire and she was upstairs in her room.
She flew out the chimney.
There you go. That's you heard it here first. She went out the chimney.
No.
Who did you like working with on set? I'll change the question from Woody slightly.
Ryan, Eve, Fletch, they were my faves. Beck, although I never really got to work with Beck.
Beck's like...
But we just had a lot of fun
Beck
in the
is
green
so
room.
much fun to work with. Like, she's one of the... She's like a personality who's so authentic to who she is that it's... You can't help but love her.
Yeah.
Someone said was getting the horse, or the walrus, said was getting the horse part of being opposite to everyone too. Although I feel like in the hills, everyone else.
No, I think I just really liked Saddle Club or something.
Now, do you speak any German? Someone asked.
I speak a little bit. Oh, someone's done their research. My
Much better
mum's
research
German.
than I've done, apparently.
Ich spreche ein kleine Deutsch. Means I speak a little bit.
Yes.
I can understand more than I can speak because I grew up with it in my household, but I was very bad at attending the classes that my parents put me in.
Amy's half German too, so she lived there for like 6 months or something and worked there and stuff. So she learned a bit, and she doesn't. I don't think she remembers too much. But you guys could have a pretend conversation to each other.
Yeah, and neither of us would know if we were actually saying
neither would I or Kane, I imagine. So, is Saskia rewriting a script for some new TV series? How to go from one city to another in the most crazy way possible?
Oh, do you think I should write a film of that?
Do you write? Is that one of your things?
No, but I really
Would you
want
direct?
to. I'd like to. Do you know who really inspired me to consider directing? Is
Yes,
Tanika.
how good is she?
I just worked with her on The Heights.
She also directs on Neighbours for everyone.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I was like, maybe I should just shadow Tanika around for the rest of her life and learn everything. And then I thought, I'm such a hack because I don't know anything about cameras or angles or
Well, there's different kind of
that
directors
stuff.
too. So there's one who will have a DOP they really lean on for a lot of that stuff, and then they concentrate more on the performance. So, but Tanika's brilliant. She came on as a what do you call it? A director's attachment, and kind of blew everyone away with just how in control she was and how confident she was with what she wanted and how to do it. And then obviously the execution was really great too. So, she's awesome. I really like her as a person as well. So
It was her 30th birthday.
Was it?
Yesterday. Yeah. Happy birthday, Tanika. I don't think she's watching, but anyway.
Oh, she is. She wouldn't miss the takTalks.
Yeah.
All right, what else we got here? Now, this is the conversation bit where people are talking about a whole lot of stuff. Someone said, "Will you?"
And not listening to us.
Well, are you going to sing live right now? Here's a question.
No.
What's the TV and theatre industry like in Australia with promoting diversity and giving opportunities to people with learning disabilities and autism? Would you?
Oh, okay. Well, you could probably speak a bit more to the diversity part. But on The Heights, we have a actress called Bridie McKim who has cerebral palsy, and she's playing a young woman with cerebral palsy. And the show has hired probably the majority of its cast from people with diverse backgrounds. So I'm pretty proud of that, to be part of that show, to be one of the minority whiteys on that show.
Yeah, I noticed that watching today. I was quite pleasantly surprised, and ironically watched some Heartbreak High yesterday because of Scott Major, and weirdly how diverse that show was for the time especially, and obviously it confronted quite big issues to do with that too, in terms of racism and sexism and that kind of thing. And it was one of the shows where I looked at and go, that existed, but how, and was so successful, how did it not infiltrate more into the general TV culture of Australia to be more diverse, you know?
Oh my God, you're just too young, Takaya. Heartbreak High was like the shit.
That's what I mean. Like it was like it was so successful, and it's such an argument that has been had in all Western TV industries that diversity well, if you look at the numbers of what happens if you make a diverse show, then it's not a successful show or whatever. But then you see the examples like that, which directly approach the ideas of diversity and that kind of stuff, and show how successful it can be. I don't know. It's crazy to think.
I think the non-commercial channels are much more supportive of diversity, and I imagine it's because of them not having commercial kind of entities that they need to answer to. I think, unfortunately, a lot of advertising agencies, think that they're marketing to white people, and so shows then have a lot of white people, and sadly it comes down to that a lot of the time. But I just had a thought around people with learning disabilities or neurodiversity. Is Josh Thomas's new show has an autistic character and a couple of autistic characters who play autistic characters. So autistic people who play autistic characters. So in terms of neurodiversity, that's a great show to watch. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, he made it in the US, right? It's his US show.
Yeah, it's a US show. It's on.
I think it's on Netflix. Yeah, I've seen it pop a bit. I can't remember what the name is either.
But that's a great show, and it's really nice to see some diversity in that area as well on screen. So if you're an actor out there who is neurodiverse or you have any kind of disability, then it's changing. Good news. Yeah. It's changing.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely is changing, which is exciting because I came onto Neighbours prior to the whole diversity push that happened in the last few years. So when I might step out of the Neighbours world, I'd be excited to step into to feel what that's like to be sent to casting that's not specific to an ethnicity. Would be nice. A classic Neighbours question: if you could be anyone else on Neighbours, who would you be and why?
Harold.
Yes.
Best.
That is a good answer. Was it your idea for Georgia to sing on Neighbours?
No.
I feel like you didn't like the singing.
Not. What? I loved it. No, I think how that came about is that I had said in an interview, a press interview or something when I started, that I used to be a singer-songwriter, and the producers obviously heard that information and thought what a great storyline it would be if Georgia started to sing. And they told me that there would be a one-off kind of thing where there's going to be a festival and Georgia has to go up on stage and sing a Pector Chambers song. And I said, okay, I'll do it as a one-off. And then I did that, and they decided that it would be really great to create an entire storyline around Georgia getting a record contract and Paul Robinson being her manager and her releasing a single, and it just grew very large. The reason why I didn't enjoy it that much is not because of the storyline. It's because Neighbours shoots very fast, and I am not a really confident singer, and I was playing guitar and singing at the same time, which I find really hard to do just in general, but then having to then act on top of that was really challenging, because there were scenes where I'm singing and playing, and then I'm like seeing Kyle in the background talking, like doing acting, and it was really, really difficult, and it was very short turnaround, and I just found it a bit stressful. That's why I wasn't super fond of that. But I spoke to the writers, and they gave me throat cancer so that I wouldn't have to sing anymore. Not throat cancer.
Yeah, well, that's if you have to, I guess that's a good way to stop singing. Then we'll wrap up the question time. That's a new jingle for this question time. That's going to be the jingle now from now on.
Jingle time. Sing for you.
Question time. Oh no, I've already lost it. Would you return? Just to answer that question.
I mean, there's no plans in the future. At this point in time, I'm
happy living in Sydney too.
Yeah,
which on the coast near the beach.
Yeah, that's true.
Because Melbourne's beaches aren't. Nobody from the UK come to Melbourne thinking they're going to see great beaches. There's better beaches in Melbourne than other places overseas, but the rest of Australia has some phenomenal beaches.
Yes. yeah, I'm very lucky to be living near the beach here, and I'm quite happy. Who knows? I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I'd love to see everyone again and dip a toe back in the Neighbours world at some point, but there's no plans at the moment.
Well, thank you very much for joining us on takTalks, Saskia
Nice to chat
Hampele.
to you.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And thank you everyone at home for joining us on takTalks for another one. Make sure if you've liked this chat, please subscribe. Please hit the like button. If you're watching it later, comment anything. And now it's time when I get to announce tomorrow's guest, which will be the last guest for at least this intense period, because as you've probably heard, we're going back to filming. I'm literally going to be filming tomorrow and coming straight from set to do it. And basically, I'm going to try next week or in the coming weeks. I'll feel out next week once I get my schedule. I'm going to try to keep doing this in some form, whether it be once a week or once in every now and then. Will really be determined by how intense our schedules are, because Neighbours has to, my job has to come first. But I've enjoyed doing these chats and want to continue them whenever I can, in whatever way I can. So I hope you come along for that ride too. But enough about that. Tomorrow we have someone who I think everyone will enjoy hearing from. Jody Gordon! Yay! Everyone gets a clap on this show. Who is obviously a current and leaving member of the show. Everyone, I hope that's not a spoiler for everyone, because that's been quite advertised. So she's coming on, and we're going to have a great chat, because we've spent the last nearly 4 years hanging out on set. So
She was younger.
yeah,
She was like, one of my favorite. Martha. Oh my God, when she got cancer.
see, we're all fans. We're all fans of Jodie. And yeah, it's going to be a really, really fun chat. So please join me for that. And otherwise, I will see you then. Stay safe, stay home, stay healthy. Thank you all for joining us. I will see you tomorrow.